Did you know, when the tower opened in the 19th century, it was the world's tallest building at 1,024 feet, 312.11 meters? Welcome to the Fact Check channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Eiffel Tower, an amazing landmark. The Eiffel Tower is the ultimate symbol of Paris, towering over the city with its distinctive lattice structure that curves upwards towards the sky. Once the tallest building in the world, the Eiffel Tower became a symbol of ingenuity and modernity during the 20th century. Since then, it is the inimitable, historical icon of Paris, attracting millions of tourists every year. It can also be seen from much of Paris, making it an important emblem for the people who live there. We take a look through some of the most fascinating and unusual facts about the Eiffel Tower in order to celebrate this marvel of architectural engineering. The Eiffel Tower in Paris, France, has serious celeb status. Completed in March 1889, it's one of the most recognizable monuments in the world. And the site, which is also known as the Iron Lady, receives nearly 7 million tourists a year. But despite its fame, the tower has some monumental secrets. Get the lowdown on this Parisian highlight. 1. It was designed by Gustave Eiffel. The Eiffel Tower was designed by the esteemed engineer Gustave Eiffel, who ran a busy workshop in Levallois-Perret, near Paris. His engineering company specialized in metal frameworks, many of which featured the same distinct lattice metalwork seen in the Eiffel Tower. Some of his most notable constructions include the Porto Viaduct in Portugal, the Viaduct du Garabit in France, and the metal framework for the Statue of Liberty. Eiffel won an open competition to design the Eiffel Tower, which was to be the crowning glory during the Paris World Fair of 1889. 2. It took 22 months to complete. The construction of the Eiffel Tower took around 22 months to complete, a remarkable feat for the time, when workers had far fewer of the machines and tools we rely on today. Miraculously, given how high workers had to climb, no one was killed or hurt during the tower's construction. 3. The Eiffel Tower is made of iron. Gustave Eiffel had a reputation for producing iron monuments which could withstand all weather conditions, and the Eiffel Tower was no exception. He used a particular type of iron for the tower called puddle iron, derived from the Pompey forges in the east of France. The name of this iron comes from the refining or puddling process the metal goes through, which eliminates excess carbon after melting the ore. Gustave argued this type of iron was the strongest and most robust building material in the world. 4. The Eiffel Tower has 3 floors. The Eiffel Tower has 3 floors in total, all of which are open to visitors. The first 2 floors are accessible by stairs and an elevator, while the top level, or summit, must be climbed by steps. The first 2 floors feature restaurants and cafes, while on each level there is an observational deck for looking out into the city of Paris from on high. 5. It's as heavy as an entire freight train. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the weight of the Parisian tower is impressively high, coming in at about the same weight as an entire freight train. In total, estimates suggest it is around 10,100 tons. The metal framework alone weighs around 7,300 tons, while the thick layer of protective paint on its surface is 60 tons. 6. The Eiffel Tower has to be repainted every 7 years. Under Gustave Eiffel's strict instruction, the Eiffel Tower must be repainted with a thick layer of protective paint every 7 years, in order to protect the iron from the corrosive effects of the weather. The Parisian government have stuck to these conditions over the past century, which is one of the reasons why it still appears in such pristine condition today. Over the years, the tower has been painted various different colors, from the original reddish-brown shade to bright yellow. In 1968, a specially mixed paint shade called Eiffel Tower Brown was adopted by the French, which is still in use today. 7. Artists staged a protest about the Eiffel Tower. The tower was not universally accepted by Parisians in its day. In fact, a group of 300 artists and academics staged an angry protest calling for its immediate removal, referring to the tower as the useless and monstrous Eiffel Tower, likening it to a gigantic black factory chimney. 8. it has limited visitor capacity. The Eiffel Tower might be a hefty monument, but it still does have a limited visitor capacity of 5,000, to be split over different levels at the same time, because of the tower's tapered shape. The first and largest level can carry the weight of 3,000 people, the second level is narrower, and can hold around 1,600, while the much smaller top level can house only 400 people. 10. Smaller replica Eiffel Towers exist around the world. The tower is so famous today that a series of small replica towers of the same design have been created in cities around the world. These include Las Vegas, Tokyo, Brazil, Riga, and Sydney. Hidden apartment. If you were in charge of constructing the Eiffel Tower, where else would you live but the Eiffel Tower? Gustav Eiffel, who designed the landmark, built himself a small apartment on the top level of the structure. The sky-high hideaway had plush rugs, oil paintings, and even a grand piano. Only a few VIPs were allowed to visit, such as superstar scientist Thomas Edison. Unused since the 1920s after Eiffel's death, few knew about the 950-foot-high pad until 2015 when it opened for public viewing. Gustav Eiffel reserved the uppermost level of the tower for himself, where he hosted famous guests like Thomas Edison in a private apartment that he designed. The space has since been transformed into a recreation of Eiffel's office, complete with wax figures of himself, his daughter, and Edison, and it's open for the public to tour. Sky Lab. The top of the Eiffel Tower seems like the perfect spot to study stars and weather. No wonder Eiffel set up 2 small laboratories on the 3rd level where astronomers and meteorologists could work. Eiffel conducted his own experiments as well. To learn more about how objects move against air, he dropped items attached to cords from the 2nd level of the tower, about 380 feet above ground, and observed how they fell. Green scene. Maybe this landmark should be renamed the Eco Tower. In 2015, workers gave the Iron Lady an environmentally friendly makeover by installing 2 wind turbines on the 2nd level of the structure. These devices convert wind into electricity for the tower's shops and restaurants. A system was also set up to collect and funnel rainwater into the tower's toilets. Fair frenzy. The Eiffel Tower was officially opened at the 1889 World's Fair. First held in London, England, in 1851, World's Fairs showcased cutting-edge inventions, architecture, and art from around the globe. The events have revealed many futuristic inventions, including the Ferris wheel, the television, X-ray machines, and ice cream cones. The World's Fair, which is now called an expo, is held every 3 years in a different city and country around the world. Spy High. The Eiffel Tower doubled as a secret agent. During World War I, a worldwide conflict that lasted from 1914 to 1918, the French military used the tower's radio and telegraph center to communicate with ground troops and battleships. It also intercepted enemy messages. In 1916, the tower picked up a message about a female spy known as the Mata Hari. Using the captured information, the French military tracked down and arrested the agent. Calling all daredevils. Some people visit the Eiffel Tower for the view. Others come for more daring thrills. In 1889, a man walked up 704 of the tower's steps, on stilts. In 1952, 3 trapeze artists swung 400 feet above ground from ropes without a net. And in 2010, a man roller-skated off a platform set up under the tower's first level down a 90-foot-tall ramp to the ground. True colors. The Eiffel Tower has had a colorful history, literally. The original structure was dark red. In 1899 it was painted yellow. About 50 years ago the tower was coated in bronze paint. Today the Eiffel Tower, which gets a paint job every several years, is covered in almost 16,000 gallons of paint. Did you know? Gustav Eiffel didn't design the tower. While the tower is named for Eiffel, it was actually Maurice Koechlin and Emile Nouguier, 2 engineers who worked for his company, who designed the structure. They also commissioned French architect Steven Sylvestre to work on the appearance of the project in order to quell public concerns about the harsh, utilitarian nature of the original design. They ultimately beat out more than 100 other projects in a contest to choose the main attraction of the World's Fair. The Eiffel Tower was almost destroyed during World War II. In August 1944, as the Nazis were losing control of occupied Paris, Adolf Hitler commanded his generals to level the city. Plans were drawn up to mine the Eiffel Tower with explosives. Thankfully, Allied troops swooped in before the order could be carried out. Subsequent air raids over Paris caused significant damage, but the Eiffel Tower survived the war intact. The Eiffel Tower is a cousin of sorts to the Statue of Liberty. As sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi was designing Liberty Enlightening the World, he called upon his mentor, Eugene Viollet-le-Duc, to design the statue's internal framework. After Viollet-le-Duc died in 1879, Bartholdi turned to Eiffel and Koechlin. They proved their iron expertise with Lady Liberty before moving on to the Iron Lady. The Eiffel Tower has been home to both a post office and a theater. The tower has been home to several businesses throughout the years, many of which are now gone. These include the newspaper, Le Figaro, which had an office on the second floor for 6 months during the 1889 World's Fair, a post office tucked into the first floor, and a wooden theater on the first floor designed by Sylvestre. The Eiffel Tower doubled as a scientific laboratory. Eiffel, an avid scientist, housed a meteorology lab on the tower's third floor. He was known to perform studies in physics and aerodynamics there, even building a wind tunnel at the foot of the structure. Eiffel opened the doors of the laboratory for other scientists to use for their experiments as well. The Eiffel Tower moves. The massive iron structure is wind-resistant and will sway during a storm. Wind isn't the only thing that can make the enormous tower move, though. The heat of the sun causes the iron to expand, making the tower grow a few centimeters during the summer months. The tower will also lean an average of 6 inches away from the sun, as the one side facing the direct light heats up faster than the other 3 sides. The Eiffel Tower is covered in the names of scientists. The names of French scientists and engineers working in the 19th century were not forgotten by history. Not only are they attached to several Parisian streets, but 72 of them are also engraved on the Eiffel Tower. The tributes were painted over in the early 20th century, but thanks to a restoration effort in the late 1980s, they are once again visible. Eagle-eyed visitors can see names like Foucault, Dumas, and Perrier cut into the iron surrounding the tower's first floor. It takes a lot of work to keep the Eiffel Tower looking good. Every 7 years, workers apply around 60 tons of paint to the tower. This not only keeps La Dame de Fer looking good, but it also helps keep the iron from rusting. There's a champagne bar at the top. If you're brave enough to climb the stairs to the top of the tower, reward yourself with a glass of champagne from the champagne bar. There's nothing like a glass of bubbly with a spectacular view. The Eiffel Tower by the numbers. When the tower opened in the 19th century, it was the world's tallest building at 1,024 feet, 312.11 meters. The Eiffel Tower has 1,665 stairs and 3 viewing platforms. Nearly 50 miles of electric cables cover the structure. There are 120 antennas atop the Eiffel Tower. The tower is made of 18,000 iron pieces bolted together by over 2.5 million rivets. 20,000 light bulbs illuminate the landmark every night. In conclusion, the Eiffel Tower was supposed to be torn down after 20 years. The tower was built with the intent of showing off France's industrial prowess during the World's Fair, but the plan was to tear it down after 20 years. However, Eiffel cleverly put a radio antenna and wireless telegraph transmitter in the tower. After proving radio's usefulness to the government in 1910, Eiffel was granted a 70-year extension to his lease. By 1980, of course, the tower had become an indelible symbol of both Paris and France, and it was in no danger of demolition.